Welcome to the 2020 Candidate Forum hosted by the McMinnville Kiwanis Club. This event is only possible because of the generosity of the Bindery Event Space and McMinnville Community Media. Thank you. Before we begin, I invite you to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. The McMinnville Kiwanis Club has been improving the lives of children in our community for decades. Each year, we invest over $60,000 and countless volunteer hours into the youth of McMinnville. Most notably, we partnered with the McMinnville Parks and Recreation to bring the first barrier-free park to Yamhill County. This is just one example of many that has made McMinnville a better place for kids. You can find more information on our Facebook page as well as our website. We are always looking for more members. Hint, hint. Today, we are happy to continue a long-standing tradition of holding local candidate forums that focus on local issues and policy. Our first forum today features candidates from City Council Ward 3, Adam Garvin and Tynan Pierce. Thank you for being here today. Each candidate will begin with an opening statement limited to 3 minutes. Our moderator questions come from our committee and will focus on applicable policy and relevant issues facing the city of McMinnville. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question, followed by a 1-minute response. Candidates will rotate answering first. If you are viewing virtually and wish to submit a question, you can send it via Facebook Messenger to the McMinnville Kiwanis Foundation Facebook page. Please keep in mind that questions need to be directed to both candidates. McMinnville Community Media will be recording the event and airing it on the cable channels as well as their YouTube channel. We will post links as soon as they are available. We will begin with opening statements. Candidates, you will stand at your microphone when it is your turn to speak. Please also keep an eye on our timekeeper to my right to ensure that you complete your statement before your time expires. Our timekeeper will alert you when you have 60 seconds remaining and then count down from there. Your time will start when you begin speaking. Adam, we will begin with your opening statement. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, citizens of McMinnville. My name is Adam Garvin. I'm your Ward 3 City Councilor. First, I'd like to thank Sam, the McMinnville New Kiwanis, McMinnville Community Media, and the Bindery Event Space for making this a possibility. This is always one of my favorite forums come election season, year in and year out. I'm a third-generation resident, born here in town, where Walgreens currently resides, which is the old Mac Hospital. I attended Linfield Pre-K, then went through the McMinnville Public School System, and did a brief stint at Linfield afterwards before realizing my entrepreneurship dreams, and started a small business a little over 12 years ago, which has now evolved into Garvin Auto Spa. It was initially a junior year high school marketing project that I took that business plan and turned into a full-time business after leaving Linfield. The reason I'm running for council for re-election is I feel there's unfinished business from my first term, one of which would be service levels in our public safety, affordable housing, and mental health issues that we see in the downtown core and throughout the city. I think McMinnville currently is at a crossroads with our expiring master plans, and I want to make sure that this is a city that's livable for all, and that we keep our culture for the next few generations. I don't want to see us deteriorate into just a suburb of Metro. I would like to keep McMinnville. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Tynan, you're up. You have 3 minutes.
Also, I'd like to offer my thanks for everyone for being here, the volunteers, the Kiwanis, the McMinnville Community Media, the Bindery Space. It's all really awesome to make this happen and give members of the community opportunity to hear ideas, to listen, to share, to engage, and public forum is always really important, so much appreciated. I also just want to take a moment to reframe and expand context on where we are. And so there's been a lot of talk, and I think the Newburgh Register, the News Register coined it as I'm a relative newcomer, and that's totally true. I moved here in 2015. And there's a lot of talk about people who've been here for multiple generations. And I just want to expand that to include the people who were here before all of us. And that's to recognize that we are on the ancestral homelands of the Kalipuya peoples, and more specifically the McMinnville tribe. And many of the names of the cities and the counties of the areas are reminders of the tribal peoples that were here before us. And these were the peoples that were forcibly removed from their homelands, and they were subjected to acts of genocide. And from 1750 to 1850, 9 out of 10 natives in Western Oregon died as a result of European settlement and Western expansion. Many of the descendants of these people are members of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. And again, as a reminder, these are not past issues only. That tribe was terminated in the 1950s and wasn't officially re-recognized until the 1980s. So these are not distant past issues. These are issues that have impacts on our present day culture. I look forward to learning more about the exciting and powerful cultural projects that the Confederated Tribes are engaging in for the revitalization of their own culture. I was excited to see Travert Stewart's coyote sculpture up on Northwest Baker Creek and Hill Road, and if you haven't had an opportunity to go see that, I would highly recommend it. The Ann Lewis show that was at the Willamette Valley Vineyards was a wonderful opportunity. And then to look at the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, their website is an awesome resource. The McMinnville Public Library has a great resource. Land Community College has great resources around learning more of the peoples that were here before us. Also, just a quick shout out for the people in the Confederated Tribes that are working hard for the preservation of the Chinook Wawa language, and the offering of what they have now, especially the powwow dance special that they're offering live, are really awesome. So that's going to be the primarily introduction for what I'm doing here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tynan. For the first question, we'll begin with Adam. So, if elected, what would your top 3 goals be for your 4-year term?
Top 3 goals for my 4-year term. Number 1 would be livability. I want to make sure that this is a city that everybody can live in, and that you can not just live here, but you can work here and you can play here, and there's jobs that are here that support all those functions. I don't want us to become a commuter city. I feel if we do that, we're going to lose the community feel we have in McMinnville and the culture that we have here, and we're going to have even harder time attracting members to great organizations that give back, like the Kiwanis and Rotary and things like that. Second to that would be public safety. Currently our fire service levels are inadequate in my opinion, and of others. I do have the endorsement of the union firefighters for this election. We put a substation out on Baker Creek Road about a decade ago, and that was supposed to be for a few years, and we're still operating out of that retrofitted house. So getting to a larger fire district, or looking at a levy structure if that fire district isn't successful. And the third would be the expansion of the UGB, but doing it in a thoughtful way that brings everybody to the table. Communication is key with all sides, and make sure everybody feels heard and that we find the right fit for McMinnville for UGB expansion, and just don't go for an oversized land grab. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Tynan, same question goes to you. You have 2 minutes.
So to engage and expand what is happening in the current McMinnville politics would be one of my top goals. So really encouraging intersectionality between the lenses of racial justice, climate justice, and workers' rights. I think that as we move forward, we are recognizing that there's a large past to McMinnville, and there's an exciting future, and there's a really powerful time right now to help determine what the future is going to look like and how we can celebrate the pillars of diversity amongst our community and reducing barriers for the people in the community to really directly participate in making policy decisions for themselves. So too often what we're seeing is representative politics that one person has a voice and other people don't. And so so striving as much as possible to make access easy for anybody in the community that wants to participate to be able to participate. We've been hearing a lot throughout this process, through all the different interviews and talks and writings, and that a lot of people are feeling that their voices are not heard. And so obviously we need to do a better job as a community of not just saying, oh, please come talk, but really making sure that we're listening and that any barriers that are in the way, that we can try to remove those. I think that as we move forward and talk about public safety, we also need to be expansive upon that and realize that we need to talk about things like making sure we have safe air, safe water, safe and healthy food, access to these things for all the people in this community. We have a really exciting opportunity to reimagine what civic engagement can be like. As I'm here today, I've worked with the organization in town that we've called McMinnville's People Collective, striving to represent assembly-style democracy and really giving people a direct opportunity to engage in the collective ownership of what's happening here in town.
Thank you, Tynan. Adam, you have 1 minute if you wish to respond. Okay. Tynan, you will answer this next question first. McMinnville schools are recognized at the state and national level for their excellence. While the two entities, McMinnville School District and the City of McMinnville, are separate, what value do you place on the importance of the relationship between the city and the school district?
Yeah, the relationship between the city and the school district right now seems to be super important, especially as we're in this completely new world where distance learning is what's happening. And what I've been hearing is that our teachers need a lot of support, and that right now there's more union busting opportunities going on. So it sounds like their unions for the teachers are really kind of struggling, and that's really sad. We've seen the collapse of collective bargaining across the entire nation, and oftentimes these national issues do end up reflecting in these smaller communities like McMinnville. So doing whatever we can to support our teachers. Also, I was at the edge of a redistricting in our public schools. So our children were at Grand Haven and now they're at Memorial. And when they were at Grand Haven, that school was 50% free lunch. And it was really interesting to see how then we switched to Memorial and it was not that. And just this access, and how can we make sure that all of the children and the families that are going to these schools get the support that they need, especially right now where we have friends that have had to stop working because they have to be home with their children. And that's a really challenging time for everybody. So what can the city do to make sure that all of these families have the access to the resources that we all need? You know, right now, I mean, it's things like Wi-Fi is going out all over the place. A lot of children they were relying on the schools to give them healthy food and access to food in general, exercise, outdoor time, like all these things that are really vital. I really think that McMinnville as a city can work hard to work with the teachers and the school district at large to make sure that we're really doing the best we can to support the young people of this community. So yeah, I think that, and I really enjoyed that some of the young people have been really coming in more and engaging. That's been really awesome. So more of that.
Thank you, Tynan. Adam, same question goes to you. You have 2 minutes.
The importance of the city and the school district working in unison as a common goal for the children of this community is paramount to the culture and diversity that we can grow from within the city, and make sure that everybody's welcome and has a place to recreate and feel safe and have good after school care and things like that. We've had a couple decade-long partnership with KOB. You know, that's coming to a close most likely, and we're going to have to find out what the new normal is, and we as policymakers of school board members and city council need to be able to work together and find that policy and not rely on our staff to do that for us. So I look forward to strengthening that relationship with the existing school board and the existing council in my next term. I think the other thing we can do is city and school is to make sure that our facilities are maximized to the best of their abilities for the children, and we don't get bogged down in politics on what facility is getting used for what. You know, if the kids need to use it and it's a city program or city programming and the school district has a facility or vice versa, that needs to be an open door both ways, and I look forward to strengthening that my second term.
Thank you, Adam. Tynan, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, so to build off of the first concepts there, I think that as we really appreciate the education offerings that McMinnville does, I think we also need to recognize that there's so much room to grow as a partnership, and so many of these children in the community, I think we need to start really encouraging all of us to realize that the young people in our community have just as much of a right to participate in policy decision making as the older people. And so truly looking at the lens of engaging with the schools to reestablishing civic engagement. I think that, you know, it was around the time that I was in school that those classes started falling away. How can we start making sure that we're really educating our young people on the best ways to participate in the civic process in our city of McMinnville, and also so that when they go on to wherever they move from here, if they stay here, they feel really empowered to be a part of that process.
Thank you. Adam, you have 1 minute if you wish to respond.
The only thing I would like to add to the school situation is, you know, I think that over the last few decades, it's kind of just became the relationship is what the relationship is, and with this COVID situation and distance learning, I think we as a city organization and them as a school district have the opportunity to really look at what a new normal looks like and make sure that we're doing what's best for the students and children of the community, and that there's equitable access across the board regardless of what school you're in within the district. There definitely is different demographics throughout the city, and we need to make sure everybody has equal access.
Great, thank you. As a reminder to any of our audience watching virtually, if you wish to submit a question, you can send it via Facebook Messenger to the McMinnville Kiwanis Foundation Facebook page. Please keep in mind that questions need to be directed to both candidates. Adam, you will answer this next question first. There are many demands on fixed and limited city resources. As counselor, will you advocate for any changes in city priorities in spending the city's money? If any, where should the changes be? What do you determine to be the city's core services? How will you ensure that those continue?
So McMinnville, like other municipalities in Oregon, has growing expenses through PERS and other things, and we're fixed in what we can generate for revenue. So the priority on core services is important. I see those core services, obviously public safety, police and fire. I think having a great park and rec program for open spaces, as well as a public library that's thriving, is what I think of when I think of core services. Then you also have the transportation aspect of a, properly managed street fund and sewer fund, and Mac Water and Light isn't within the city's purview, but we do work in unison with them. So we're fortunate to have probably one of the best watersheds in the state in that aspect, and great power rates, but making sure we keep our finger on the pulse of that and that doesn't slip away as well. As far as prioritization of money, I want to make sure that we're using our funds for McMinnville problems and McMinnville solutions, and we're not getting lost in the weeds of national policy and international policy. I think we need to make sure we're identifying McMinnville's problems, finding McMinnville solutions, and leveraging our resources with our regional partners, whether that's other cities or counties, to make sure we find those solutions in the most efficient and effective way possible, and bring them to fruition in a timely manner, that we don't get bogged down in state and federal grant funds that we're not eligible for, like community block grants that a lot of people mention, but we don't have the size to get those grants. So we need to make sure we stay right size for McMinnville. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Tynan, you have 2 minutes to answer the same question.
Okay, great. So in terms of the core services, I think things like health and wellness, cultural resources, educational resources, housing, safety, education, economic improvements, I think climate protections. I understand the concept of the city services feeling fixed, and at the same time, there's been a lot of feedback about the budget that people don't feel like they understand where the money's going and where the fees are going and where they're, especially with the general fund, and how people are really wanting to have more participation in where this decisions are being made. The last budget went through with only one person, Zach Geary, objecting to that budget being passed through. And so that budget went through even though it didn't support a lot of the services that it needed to support. Didn't support affordable housing enough, didn't support the fire department enough, and only one person voted against it. And when they voted against it, I really appreciated what Zach said and how that there was a need for more robust discussion in the community. And that's a real key. So we need to be understanding that more people want to participate in the decision making about where the funds that they're putting into the city are going. And being as transparent as possible with those decisions. I think right now, personally, I advocate for the idea that we need to reimagine public safety, that we're putting a $9 million budget into the police, and we're only putting $200,000 maybe into affordable housing, when affordable housing is a key idea behind public safety. I think that we have to look at things like, Adam mentioned the watershed. Watershed's really important, but how can we make sure that we are protecting the water? How can we make sure that we're making sure there's clean air, that there's clean water for generations to come? Things like this, building to make sure that we have a climate action plan, which right now we don't. So how can we move forward really expansively in an intersectional way to make sure that, yes, there's larger global context, so think globally, but then at the same time we can act locally.
Thank you. Adam, you have 1 minute if you wish to respond.
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate that, staying focused on the purview of the McMinnville City's Council tasks that we're tasked with from the state and county and federal level, and making sure that we understand that we don't receive funding for a mental health organization. That's funded through the county, and we don't receive funding for affordable housing. That's funded through the county as well. That is mainly divvied out through YCAP and Yamhill County Housing Authority. And so making sure that we're staying in our lane as McMinnville, we're staying in our lane as McMinnville policymakers, and we're getting the McMinnville citizens the best value for their dollar and providing core services to McMinnville and not trying to be everything to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Tynan, you have 1 minute if you wish to respond.
Yeah, I'd like to respond. So I totally understand that there's county influences and there's other influences. Nonetheless, there is a general fund expenditures, and there's a large proportion of that only goes to certain public services, and very small amounts to go to other things. So I think that it is appropriate to look at that with a fine-tooth comb and really go through it, and to involve more people and to involve more voices, and to make sure that the collective decision about our collective money is being viewed as just that, where it's not just a few people saying we think that this is the idea. If there is dissent and concern within the community, there needs to be space for that to be brought to the table. And if a public hearing comment is only at the end and that doesn't have any effect, we need to make sure that we're letting people know where in the process they can engage, so that we can all decide on these things together.
Thank you. Tynan, you'll answer this next question first. With the city's recent diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts intended to keep matters of race and inclusion at the forefront of decision making, how do you plan to address and support these efforts?
Yeah, so these are a great first step, absolutely. I do think that overall diversity, equity, and inclusion training is basically that's like the entry bar, right? So you take that and then you use that as a lens to move forward, making sure that already what we're seeing is that these are hard races, that participating in civic policymaking is challenging. And so making sure that we use this lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion to look at our our communities and saying, hey, what's preventing people from being able to participate in policymaking? What's preventing people from participating in coming to a meeting? Why does it seem like it's inaccessible? What can we do to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to have bargaining power? I mean, we mentioned things like collective bargaining on a national scale, but locally, people don't have equal bargaining power. It's really out of whack. And so making sure that that lens is expanded to all the conversations. So we have a workers' right issue, we have a climate justice issue, we have a racial issue. When we put those things in a vacuum, when we try to say that they only exist in one place, it's too reductive. So we need to be expansive with our thinking. I think especially climate change right now is really important. A lot of people have not really thought about this as much before, but we all had 10 days of hazardous air. We could not go outside. And that already speaks to equity. We're looking at the community distance learning right now. That's also speaking to equity. So how can we make sure that no one is being unsupported? Because we don't really have vulnerable communities. What we have are underserved communities. People don't just naturally are born vulnerable. They become vulnerable because they are underserved. So making sure that we continue to strive to make sure that there are no underserved communities in McMinnville.
Thank you. Adam, same question goes to you. You have 2 minutes.
DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is definitely an important topic that will be with us, for forever. It's something that everybody needs to feel welcome, and everybody needs to feel loved, and everybody needs to have the opportunity to participate and contribute to whatever their level that they're comfortable contributing and participating is. So with that, I feel that we as McMinnville are fortunate that we've been proactive as a city. I was one of 6 votes that formed the DEI committee that we're accepting applications on currently. You can find that application online. If you have questions, you can reach out to me personally as well. I'm happy to get you involved. That committee is going to help shape policy and make sure that we're looking at new policies and old policies through that DEI lens moving forward. Other things that we've done as a city is yesterday we had some DEI training for city staff. They're going to have training again on the 5th. That's mandatory. We as council have training on the 29th. That's mandatory. And then our police department has a DEI plan and implicit bias training that they're working through the end of the year. And then they'll have a DEI plan moving forward for the years to come. Another reason I feel we're on the forefront and proactive about this type of policy is when the 8 Can't Wait campaign came out with the National Black Lives Matter movement back in June. We as a city already accomplished 7 of those 8 things. So yes, there's still progress to be made, but I think we as a city have been proactive in it, and I look forward to continuing to champion that proactive nature in my next term. Thank you.
Thank you. Tynan, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, so moving forward into the coming generations of McMinnville, I think we're seeing is that we're only going to be becoming a more diverse community. And so what can we do to make sure that we don't just use DEI as this kind of reductive opportunity to just talk about race or talk about inclusion, but how can we make sure that we're actively celebrating diversity and looking at it as a true strength of our community, and through a process of direct democracy and assembly-style delegation, where people are actually being asked to participate directly in the decision-making of policy, we're really going to see the opportunity for people to really feel invested and feel like they are given a lane into here. And I appreciate the work that has been done so far, and I think that there's just no such thing as too much. We can just continue to strive forward with always leading with this at the forefront of our policy structures.
Thank you, Tynan. Adam, you have 1 minute if you wish to respond.
Yeah, I think continuing to not just make opportunities available, but make sure that, the other communities within our community are empowered to be active, and we don't just say, hey, there's this opportunity and it just kind of sits on our webpage, but we communicate that on their level and reach out to them where they're at, whether that's social media or whether that's their private culture groups or whatever that is. I want to make sure that they know it's there, and we do everything we can to make sure that they're engaged in the process. I've definitely seen the demographics change in the 34 years I've been in McMinnville, and it continually will. And I look forward to working with all parties in that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam, you will answer this next question first. The role of a city councilor requires effective and productive communication. What are your expectations of yourself and your fellow councilors as it pertains to group dynamics, discussion, and work sessions?
So communication, I think part of what we're seeing here in this election race is from lack of communication. We as council called that out in our strategic plan that we adopted a couple years back. That took the first 2 years of my first term to develop. Had massive engagement from different community leaders and demographics around the city. So I think if we continue to implement that, I would really like to see the city council have a unified voice in their social media message. We do have serial meeting laws in the state, and so we as councilors can't just jump on forums and have policy discussions when other councilors have already jumped in there. We would create what they call a serial meeting, and then we would be liable for that. So we need to make sure we respect the process, the public records process, and not have serial meetings while at the same time meeting our constituents where they're at and where they want to get that information. And that obviously isn't only in the News Register and only on our city website. So we need to be creative in our policy of doing that. I think we have some other surrounding cities that have done a good job of that, and I look forward to championing that during my second term. Thank you.
Thank you. Tynan, same question. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I actually have a background in nonviolent communication and facilitation processes, and I think those would come directly to bear on this situation, as well as my background as a community organizer and in education for 10 plus years in the nonprofit sector. There's been a lot of work that I've been able to do with the communities where I've lived in the past and have already been doing here, and I really am excited at the idea and the concept that we've been putting together as McMinnville's People Collective, where we're really giving people an opportunity to come together and vote on ideas. So the platform that I'm presenting right now is not one that I came up with in a vacuum. It is one that I came up with in conversations with community members. We voted on ideas and we constructed this platform together. And that's a really exciting opportunity that really provides equity for everybody involved and makes everyone feel like they're a shareholder. I personally have been disappointed in the communication with the current McMinnville City Council, and not to totally slam Adam, but I've never received any personal communication from Adam, and I've reached out numerous times to the city. I have received comment from Kelly Minke, she has gotten back to me, and I have received comment from Zach Geary, he's gotten back to me. And even recently my daughter presented a concept for a community garden and a trees for bees idea at City Council, and was positive brief feedback, but no one's reached out to her since then. And she's 9 years old, and she came to me and she said, "Hey Dad, like what's going on? Like I thought people were gonna like help me participate in this and we were gonna do this, and that hasn't really happened." And that creates a lot of disappointment and disenfranchisement. And so I understand that this is a volunteer position. At the same time, the more that we are able to follow through on our roles with participation of our community members' engagements, the better everyone's going to feel, and the more they're going to feel like it's not just one voice talking, but their voice is part of that too.
Thank you. Adam, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, so communication will be key for who's ever elected to office, and I try and be as approachable as I can be. I'm willing to meet people for coffee. I'm willing to have phone calls. I'm willing to chat, on the street, even when I'm out with my family. This is a volunteer position, but I'm accessible 24/7, and I feel that the council as a whole operates that way as well. And I think we just need to do a better job of getting our message out to people and not get bogged down in the established channels, but bringing our communication level to 2020 and not the 2000s. Thank you.
Thank you. Tynan, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, so an exciting project that we've actually already started to do in McMinnville People Collective. We're actually constructing community, basically bulletin board boxes that we're going to be putting around different locations in our yards and encouraging people to leave comments and say like what things that they need. It's like a mutual aid station. It's an idea sharing station. It's a place where we can start putting up information for each other to really understand what's going on. Oh, is there a meeting happening? Oh, especially right now with so many of like the bulletin board situations where we used to find those kind of little bits of information. Maybe they're not as active as they used to be, especially because of the impacts of COVID. Like creative ideas and compassionate ideas for lending like real, true like engagement of our community. I mean, one of the main things that come up in all these conversations right now is that people don't feel like the current city council methods are making them feel heard in the policy making. And so obviously that needs to be adjusted. And I'm looking forward to participating in that myself.
Thank you. Tynan, you will answer this next question first. COVID-19 is a watershed moment on a global level. As a counselor, what concerns you about the immediate future for the city of McMinnville? How will you work to ensure a safe and equitable recovery for every person in McMinnville?
Yeah, that's definitely, I think it's at the forefront of all of our minds right now. The landscape is changing so rapidly. People are experiencing a lot of struggle. I think right off the top, it would be awesome if McMinnville could come together and make sure we're supporting our communities and having our own eviction moratoriums so that people that are reaching the end of government assistance, reaching the end of assistance through paid leave or what have you, people that are having to stay home from work because their children are home and not being able to go to school, something that we can do potentially is establish an eviction moratorium where we can say, hey, we're not going to let anyone get kicked out of their homes right now because they can't pay their bills. We're going to work to also make sure that we're not raising bills right now. There was a recent measure that was, I think it was like a 3% increase on our recology bills. Things like that it's a really sensitive time where we need to be really mindful of increases on anybody's household bills. 3% can mean a lot when you already are looking at a 30 to 40% pay cut. Throughout the entire world, and especially locally, we're seeing the real lines of accessibility being drawn through COVID, and a lot of the systems that maybe seem to be working for some are being shown that they're really not working at all. And being creative to come up with new systems, like reimagining and co-creating new systems where everyone has the participation to build those systems. I'm going to avoid like paternalistically stepping in and saying, oh, this is what we need to do. But I think that as a community, if we come together and we give everyone an opportunity to be creative, that we will come up with dynamic, diverse, and really strong plans and systems that will work moving forward.
Thank you. Adam, same question goes to you. You have 2 minutes.
COVID-19, definitely a watershed moment. I think we as a city organization need to make sure that we're empowering businesses to make sure that they can withstand this. We just had a great grant program that came out, which unfortunately was underutilized. We had about $200,000 and only I think about $60,000 of it got utilized. But programs like that would be great to make sure people can keep their jobs. The other thing is, to make sure that we as a city organization aren't just wanting to revert back to how things used to be, and that we're looking at the opportunity, things like the book delivery through the library and how that could be something that is here after COVID, and that increases circulation and accessibility to some of the users of that library that maybe can't get out of their house for whatever that reason is, but making sure that our policies within the city foster accessibility through Park and Rec and the library and things like that. So I think we have a tremendous opportunity as a city organization as well as business owners and citizens to imagine the possibilities of what can we do better than we were doing before COVID was here. And that's what I would look for in policy moving forward, is to make sure we capture the good but empower the great that's to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Tynan, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, so I think that the grant program that Adam just mentioned is a really good opportunity to kind of focus in on one of the key issues that have been brought up a lot in this campaign, which is that there was a $200,000 grant program available and only $60,000 was utilized. So somewhere along the roads, like there was no communication about that availability to people, because it seems like if that was really made known, that people would have participated in that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that I'm right, that businesses would have wanted that kind of support. And so moving forward, just being super, super, super mindful about making sure how much this information is getting out into the community. And if there's support there, like knocking on doors and like doing whatever we can to make sure people know, like, hey, we don't want this to become like just Walmarts everywhere, right? Like we want to continue to support like our small businesses, and we want to continue to support like the small town environment that makes this feel like someplace we all want to live. We don't want this to all become like, you know, corporate, you know, kind of strip mall type of thing. So, yeah.
Thank you. Adam, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to that grant. Some additional context on that is that was a $100,000 city match to $100,000 Travel Oregon, I believe, was the initial funder of that. And so with that, there was parameters around that. So businesses that had gotten PPE loans or PPP loans and the EIDL loans and things like that were ineligible for that. So we definitely had over $200,000 worth of applicants, but when we're working with regional partners, state, county, federal, whatever that is, we do have to make sure we allocate those dollars within their parameters. And so we as a city are handcuffed to making sure that we're properly assigning those dollars to those recipients, and so we're not liable for that difference.
Thank you. Adam, you will answer this next question first. The need for more robust mental and behavioral health services in our community is evident. What suggestions or plans would you have to address these issues for those people residing in McMinnville?
Yes, mental health is definitely something that got me to run for my first term. We had a variety of mental health issues in the downtown core, and that was one of the first things that I was assigned to as a counselor, was the Downtown Safety Task Force, where we had the church community, we had some members from the houseless community, city staff, myself, all come together and come up with a policy that's been effective. It hasn't made things perfect, but from, you know, just getting the mental health the treatment they need, I'm open to any and all discussions that we can leverage and partner with other partners, but the reality is mental health funding that comes down from the federal level and goes to the state stops at the county. We as a city of McMinnville do not receive any assistance in funding those mental health dollars, but if the county commissioners or Health and Human Services comes to the council, I am all ears on how we can leverage and make a program that's better not just for the county but for McMinnville residents and all. So thank you.
Thank you. Tynan, same question to you. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so if the county is where this money is getting tied up, then yeah, figuring out ways that we can say to the county, like, these are the plans that we have, like creating the systems locally that when the opportunity arises for funding, it's just ready to rock and roll. There's models that are in place. I think that some people have already looked into them, but I mean, Whitebird Clinic down in Eugene is a really successful model that was be able to deployed instead of police resources, and it saved Eugene a ton of money, and it's a lot less what you see in terms of like police brutality calls. It's way less because armed people aren't going out to deal with mental health people. It's mental health calls. It's trained mental health professionals are going out to deal with mental health calls. So really readjusting the way that we react and respond to these things. I think that it goes back again to the compassionate idea that people are struggling, and when they're struggling, isn't a time to criminalize or to judge or to make them move away. It's an opportunity for us to open our arms and find context within our community that can truly support them and make them feel loved and encouraged to be here. I know that can feel challenging, but things like exclusionary zones downtown or anything like that where we're just pushing people out to the margins, it just creates more of the same situation. If you're already feeling isolated and having mental health struggles, the last thing you need is to feel like you're also then criminalized. So really just changing and refocusing on those ideas. Again, if we go back to our communities and really let everybody participate in these solutions and co-create them to facilitate success, I'm really confident that we're going to find the solutions within our own communities. So, yeah.
Thank you. Adam, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, so back to keeping McMinnville right size and McMinnville problems and McMinnville solutions. Programs like the one talked about in Eugene are funded through state and federal grants like the community block grant. McMinnville is currently about 60% the population it needs to be to receive one of those. The county, likewise, I believe, is about 70% the population it needs to be to receive one of those. So we're a well ways off of getting one of those. And so I think if we're going to create a facility over what we already have, that's going to have to come from a 501c3 and community partners and the business community, like it has for many generations here locally. When you're working with a small city, you need to have that small city approach and make sure you bring everybody to the table. So look forward to doing that in my second term. Thank you.
Thanks. Tynan, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, so I understand that because of our size, we might be limited in terms of grants, but it doesn't mean that we can't still create these opportunities and look to potentially advocating from some of the funds in our general fund to be used to fund these sort of things. You know, we do have money within our community. If we do have a business community that's looking to support this, well then great, let's do that. Let's find ways that can happen. But I think the city can still participate in making sure that the larger community is brought to bear in co-creating these solutions. And just because a situation like Whitebird at a larger facility doesn't necessarily immediately and directly replicable in our city doesn't mean that we can't learn a lot from that and take the things that can be applied here and utilize them in an effective way that helps people and also saves money.
Thank you. We're up to our final question, and Tynan, you will answer this one first. If the city received a $1 million grant, how would you allocate the money to be spent?
Like just a $1 million grant with like no restrictions.
This is just share your dreams with us.
It's like $1 million. Okay.
Let's have some fun.
I promised my 9-year-old daughter that I would say at any opportunity that we would have more community gardens and we would have a trees for bees program where we would have fruit trees for pollination and food for the people as they walk by. That's one of her dreams, so I would advocate for that. But right off the bat, again, I'm going to veer away from any kind of paternalistic, this is what we're going to do with $1 million, and say that's an amazing opportunity to bring our community together, return the decision making about funds back into the collective. Amazing opportunities like abandoned buildings that we have in town that are not being utilized as anything. Let's buy those. Let's put them in public trust. Let's use those for incubation centers for like exciting small business opportunities. Let's go ahead with some of these, abandoned city lots and let's turn those in community gardens and create food security and networks where people can come together and like really have a vibrant, prosperous, thriving community of ideas. I think that $1 million also in a city can go pretty quick. But the opportunity for excitement and engagement and imagination is really, really awesome. And we need to be looking at those sorts of opportunities with not just, what am I going to do? I'm just one voice. I want to make sure that everybody that has an exciting opportunity to work with like $1 million would be participating in that process.
Thank you. Adam, same question goes to you. You have 2 minutes.
The $1 million question. So the first thing I would do is I would look at what opportunities we have as a city to leverage those dollars and how we can turn that $1 million into a $4 or $5 million impact for our citizens through, state and federal and regional partnerships. $1 million does sound like a lot of money, but $1 million wouldn't even put one 24-hour ambulance on the road within our district with 2-person staffing 24/7. So, looking at that number, hey, it's $1 million, yes, but I think as a policymaker, your first duty is to see how you could leverage that money, regardless of where that went within the city budget, whether that went to leveraging it for the library or park and rec or public safety or public works or mental health, partnering with, community partners of the county and Newburgh and other cities, and, wherever that's gonna steer to is where I want to put those dollars. So the citizens are getting the most bang for their buck on that $1 million. I think if you just took the $1 million and said, I'm going to spend the $1 million, you're not doing what's best for the city long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Tynan, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, so an exciting idea that a community member shared with me recently, that $1 million could be helped to start fund. I mean, what if we had something like our own municipal bank where we have this amazing, loan opportunities for people that are given so that, we have low interest rates or zero interest rates opportunities for people to really have these amazing small businesses, and we could create an incubation in McMinnville for people's creative ideas for what they really want to do here. And we talk a lot about, the power of the small business in this community. Well, let's continue striving for that. Take $1 million and really strive to make sure that all the people within this city can really start achieving more of their dreams in the collective use of the commons. There's so many opportunities in this city to make overheads lower so that people have more accessibility to participating. And $1 million is small, but it could be an awesome start.
Thank you. Adam, you have 1 minute if you wish to respond.
Again, leveraging would be the major focus. As far as for businesses, I think we already do a great deal of that with our urban renewal agency, MIRAC, and how we partnered with the Atticus Hotel on a public-private partnership, and how we partner with the Mac Market on a public-private partnership. The various downtown businesses like Giraldi's that have got facade grants to help improve the look at downtown. We've partnered with them on cleaning awnings up and down 3rd Street, the city lighting and things like that. So I think for that $1 million question, I really want to see how we can elevate the service levels, regardless of what service level that is, within the city to leverage that $1 million for the biggest impact for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now begin our closing statements. Each candidate, you will have 3 minutes to talk. Adam, you will go first for your 3-minute closing statement.
I think the citizens of McMinnville Ward 3 have a tremendous opportunity in front of them. They have the opportunity to elect me to my 2nd term, somebody that's focused on the betterment of MAC in a nonpartisan way that doesn't just look at one sector of the city, but I look at the city overall. I'm a 3rd generation, currently raising the 4th with my fiance Trish, and we have 2 boys. I would like this city to maintain its culture and MAC feel for many generations to come, and that's why I'm running for a 2nd term, is to see through some unfinished business, and who knows what the future has in store. But with a vote for Garvin, you know that I'm gonna do what's best for MAC and not have any personal agenda get in the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Tynan, you have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
Yeah, so thanks again for the opportunity to come together and share ideas and let people in the community hear those ideas and have a healthy dialogue back and forth here with Adam. So thank you, Adam, for coming to participate today. It's really awesome to have this. And yeah, let's go ahead and say that voting for me and voting for this platform, this campaign, is completely different than any other opportunity that this community members are giving right now. This opportunity is completely reimagine how we participate in civic process. And that is an exciting and amazing opportunity for people. And it is not just my idea. It is an idea that is built with the excitement and enthusiasm of many people coming together, because that's what a city is. It's not one person saying, oh, I'm in charge of the city and this is what I'm going to do. And I hope you agree with me. It's what do we all want to do? And how can we make sure that this is a place that we all want to be? So this campaign that I'm participating in is something that I feel super passionate about, and I'm really, really excited that regardless of what happened in this campaign, this is just the beginning of making sure that more and more and more and more and more voices in McMinnville are being able to come together and that barriers are being taken away. So for too long in most cities, and McMinnville included, there's barriers for participation. I mean, just in this race, I've had to come to realize that too. And I think that it's a pinnacle of time where we have the confluence of moments that are national, moments that are state, and moments that are local, and how those all intersect. We cannot overlook that. We cannot continue to be reductive in our approach. We have the opportunity to be expansive, and that is so truly exciting. And I think that we need to engage with this opportunity and bring as many different people into the fold as possible. So that is what this campaign and the campaign that I'm representing offers to the people of McMinnville. And I'm truly excited that anybody that wants to participate in this to vote for me, which is truly meaning it's actually a vote for you.
Thank you. Thank you to you both for a productive conversation.